Good evening and welcome. My name is Keith Cole. I'm the Executive Director for the Wolf River Conservancy. We want to welcome you all here tonight for our virtual lecture, where you're going to learn about the Cornerstone Habitat Restoration Project, which is very generously funded by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. Our presentation tonight is part of our ongoing educational outreach to the community. Kathy Justice, our Director of Education, leads all of our educational outreach to the community in a variety of projects, such as tonight's virtual lecture. And of course, we want to recognize our presenting sponsors for this year's virtual lecture series. Our corporate sponsor is Buckman. Our foundational sponsor is the Crawford Howard Family Foundation. And we'd also like to take this time to recognize all of our 2022 benefactors. They include AutoZone, Brother International, FedEx, the Hyde Family Foundation, International Paper, Jim Karras Subaru, Ring Container Technology, Silvamo, and all those corporate benefactors provide support to our conservancy throughout the year. But of course, all of our supporters, corporations, community volunteers, individual donors, all are critically important to the Wolf River Conservancy and helping us to deliver on our mission 365 days a year. And we appreciate all of your support. And as always, if you would like to donate to the Wolf River Conservancy, a gift of any size is always appreciated. You can donate safely and securely online at wolfriver.org, or I think during tonight's presentation, there'll be a link in the chat box where you can access the donation site as well. A little housekeeping, just a reminder, please don't record tonight's program on any device. We will be recording this and it will be released later to the community. And if you've registered tonight, you'll get a direct email with that link. So we ask you not to record tonight's program. If you have questions during the evening, please put those in the Q&A box. At the end of the program, Kathy Justice will be presenting the questions to the panel. And speaking of that, we have a wonderful panel tonight, a very capable panel that will be taking us through this presentation. I'd like to introduce them individually at the very beginning here tonight. Kathy Justice, our Director of Education, will be participating tonight as part of the panel. Kathy's been with the Wolf River Conservancy since 2007. She has her master's in aquatic ecology from the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and over 25 years of experience in biology and environmental education. Kathy's a Memphis native. She's worked for the Lichterman Nature Center, the National Park Service, Kentucky Nature Preserves Commission, among others, and has served as a U.S. Peace Corps volunteer. Along with Kathy tonight is we have Ryan Hall, our Director of Conservation. Ryan first started with Conservancy in 2013 and was promoted to his current position in 2018. Ryan has his bachelor's in forestry from Mississippi State University, and then he earned his master's in city planning and regional planning from Clemson University. Along with Ryan and Kathy tonight, we have a longtime friend and a partner to the Wolf River Conservancy, Mr. Alan Trentling. Alan is the West Tennessee Stewardship Ecologist for the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. And we appreciate Alan and all the good work that he does in West Tennessee and how he helps us in so many ways. Alan has a master's in biology from East Tennessee State University. With that, please help me welcome the distinguished panel, and I'll turn it over to Kathy. Kathy?
Thank you, Keith. And let me get my screen shared. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Let me see. I'm going to give you a brief introduction and overview of this project and the grant which funds it. And then I'll turn it over to Ryan to give us details on the project. So our Cornerstone Habitat Restoration Project has been, it was funded last year, early in 2021, and runs through, officially it runs through August of this year. And I think you will find that it is, let me get my slideshow going. There we go. And I think you'll find that it fits well within our mission, which is to protect and enhance the Wolf River watershed as a sustainable natural resource. So our project is funded, as Keith said, by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, and specifically by their Land Trust Bird Conservation Initiative Small Grants Program. And we have two great partners on the grant. So it's Wolf River Conservancy, then we have TDEC, or Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, represented here tonight by Alan, and then TWRA, which is Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. A pretty strong partnership, which I think looks very good to Cornell when they looked at our grant application. So the Land Trust Bird Conservation Initiative has these goals. First, to develop mutually beneficial collaborations between land trusts and the bird conservation community. So this is something specifically for land trusts, which we are a certified land trust, of course. And so the initiative provides funding annually to facilitate high priority bird focused conservation projects for land trusts. And the project must contribute to bird conservation through through one or more of the following activities. And I think I won't list all of these or read them all out, but I think you will find, as Ryan explains the project, that we are doing several of these activities in our project. So let's talk about where the project is located. It's actually at the northeast corner, or the eastern end of the Ghost River State Natural Area, approximately that location right there near Moscow, Tennessee, out in Fayette County. And here is a nice satellite image of the area that we're concerned with. It's 23 acres, and a lot of people on this call will be familiar with where this area is. There's, if you look down here, you can see the boat put in at Bateman Bridge right here. So here's our put in parking area. Here's Bateman Road. Here is King Drive, just up from that. And so it forms kind of a corner type area. Here's the Wolf River right here, with several different habitat types, a couple of old crop fields right here. And Ryan will talk more about that. Here's another view of the same area from a different angle. So what are the objectives of our Cornerstone Habitat Restoration Project? Our first objective, and probably the most important one, is to increase biodiversity on these 23 acres, and in a way that leads to a mosaic of habitat types, including mature hardwood forest, wetlands, and several others. Our second objective is to protect a unique plant community, about 200 square meters in size right now, and provide for its natural expansion. We're just going to kind of keep an eye on it. Alan will be explaining more about that probably. And then our third objective, which you are all helping us with tonight, is to engage and educate volunteers and community members. We've already had one volunteer project. Hopefully we'll have another one this year. We're going to install some interpretive signage. And then we also need to provide educational programs and materials for the public. So in a nutshell, these are the activities that we're undertaking or have undertaken already in this project. Besides protecting the remnant plant community, we plan to remove as many invasive exotic plants as we can. We have also removed 9 acres of planted pine, and Ryan will explain the rationale for that. We are replanting with native species. We want to restore the native hardwood forest habitat and its adjacent wetlands as much as possible. We're also installing some nest boxes for cavity nesting birds. And finally, we're engaging volunteers and other community members. So thank you to any of you who did come out on February 19th this year to help us plant 600 native trees, a variety of species out in that field you can see in the background. This is our 3.5 acre upper old crop field. And apparently they're doing pretty well, that's what I hear. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Ryan at this point. I will be back at the end with just a few seconds to talk about eBird and how you can contribute to that. So go take it away, Ryan. Oh, let me stop sharing.
Well, thank you, Kathy, and thank you, Keith, for the introduction. I'm Ryan Hall, Director of Land Conservation. I'm going to actually have my video off when I present because my internet stability So I will get right into it. All right, let's see here. All right, I trust everyone can see this. So, Kathy did a really nice run through on what we're trying to do, accomplish with the restoration effort. But I first wanted to touch off on how we even go and find these land parcels in the first place. Is really a three-pronged approach with a lot of mapping in the background. But water is the main driver of our land conservation work. That may sound a little silly, but water and land for us, we focus on wetlands, put the two together. Not only that, we focus on wetlands that recharge the Memphis Sand Aquifer. So that combined with the wildlife corridor and all the different habitats on the Wolf River, in addition to climate resilience, which is a growing need to ensure that you've got a great gradient of soil types, habitat types, from wetlands to the high ground. So this is in generally how we view and approach protecting land. And when we are working to protect 25 land parcels by 2025, as established by our strategic conservation plan that we did in 2018. And I believe we're sitting at 15 parcels thus far. So we got 10 to go. There we go. And as I said, water. We focus primarily in East Shelby County, Fayette County, Tennessee, and some in Benton County, Mississippi, as the Memphis Sand Aquifer interfaces with the land that we stand on at the wetland level, at least in Fayette County. So there's recharge coming in from the river, from lakes, streams, and precipitation. This is where we focus. And broader based, the Wolf River Watershed outlined in dark blue here. You see in green and red the land parcels that have been protected. Green is anything prior to 2012. Red is anything in the last 10 years. So Wolf River Conservancy hasn't necessarily been involved in every single red parcel. We've been involved in the lion's share of them. So we're actively trying, and you can see along the main stem of that Wolf River, just continuing to add land protection to the river. And then the restoration effort is here, the Ghost River State Natural Area, Wolf River Wildlife Management Area. And I know Alan will speak on a little bit, but I'll just touch base on a few habitats that Ghost River State Natural Area contains. This is Spirit Lake, the end of the Ghost section. So this wetland is sitting right on top of the aquifer, recharging clean drinking water. And there's other cases where clean drinking water is actually coming up to the surface. So this is a natural spring that bubbles up to the surface and keeps this whole area inundated even during the hottest, driest spells. So I mean, there's positive pressure, which is good on the aquifer. More water. We've got Mineral Slough Boardwalk. If you go out there today, it's a small trail that Alan maintains there for TDEC, and very scenic stream that has a lot of water tupelo, holds a lot of ducks. I do recommend visiting that for sure. All that water, and there still is areas protected adjacent on the high ground. So there's some sand hills that come down in Fayette County down to the Wolf that really adds to the resilience of the protected landscape. So wildlife and especially birds have a large gradient of different types of habitats. So, I mentioned Ghost River State Natural Area. Here's really where it is outlined in red. It's a much larger area. Outlined in red is the designated state natural area. Everything else is pretty much state wildlife management area. And where we're focusing our restoration efforts is, like Kathy said, the Cornerstone property. And let's go ahead and zoom in to that. I am one of the map maker. I'm one of the map makers here at Wolf River, so I've got plenty of maps. So on the property, Kathy already kind of discussed. When we got it, so let's think of this as a baseline. 2 agricultural fields, a big lower one, 13 acres, a smaller upper, about 9.5 acres of pine plantation, and then this wetland marsh was really the focus of our restoration efforts. And the rest of the habitats did not need restoration, and don't even have to say much because I just show you a picture and that is why, of course. Anyway, sorry about that, but there's the Wolf River flowing through. There's adjacent to the Wolf River, we've got forested sloughs full of bald cypress. It's also, there's some springs that feed this. There's my baby named Cypress in the background, if you can hear that. We've got a lot going on. Early successional bottomland hardwoods are adjacent. Early successional just means it hasn't been in forest for very long. So it's mostly sweet gum, green ash, tulip poplar, sycamore, that kind of forest. Everyone's probably seen that type of forest. But anyway, it's a good quality forest with different age structure, so it's got a good balance. The creekside hardwoods is a nice mix of both upland and bottomland species in one area. No need to touch this habitat. And finally, the upland hardwoods, nice intact forest system that actually contain that less common plant community that Alan will highlight. So anyway, all that to say, there's baseline that really didn't need much restoration work, but there were 4 areas that we really did need to focus on. And one of them is this upper agricultural field, which stopped production, I believe, in 2020. I think that was the last year. So let's zoom in. So at the start of the year, this is what the field looked like. There are very few native species, very few species in general. When something is so intensely managed for crops, I mean, they're very effective at growing what they want and not anything else. So our idea was to convert this to something that provides a lot more for pollinators, a lot more for birds and other wildlife. So we're looking at, and we've already done this, put in native wildflower seed and also planting it with trees at a wide spacing. So to get a field prepped, we performed a prescribed fire, and Kathy can give you a firsthand witness of how it went. She was able to be there. Anyway, small field, so it burned relatively quickly and easily. And this is an easy way to get a field ready for almost anything. It does not harm any of the plant. Well, honestly, we wanted to replace most of the plants with natives anyway. And all that soot you see after a rain ends up washing down into the soil and creating bare soil. So here's that tree planting that Kathy mentioned back in February. So nice bare ground. We put in 600 trees. I believe it was 5 tree species. White oak was the most numerous of the ones we put in. And we planted it at a wide 16 by 16 spacing, because when we did the wildflower seeds, we had to make sure we can get the rig through there. So there's a lot of planning involved in restoration. This is a hydro seeder. So the seeds, wildflower and grass seeds, are put into this area right here, along with water, which they actually got from the Wolf River itself, and a mulch, which is effectively grass and some really fine wood bark to help carry the seed. And I'll even show you what it looks like in action here. Hopefully that's coming across nicely. So on the rig, they had to make several passes, and it doesn't look like much is going to hit the ground, but we've done this on a smaller site, and it's very, very effective at getting the seed to sprout. It is a slightly more labor intensive way, and it costs a little bit more, but I believe it is more effective for the wildflower seeds. So that's what we've done in that upper field, all of that just for 3.5 acres. So keep that in mind. And then the lower field was done just prior to the grant. Used a seed drill, so a tractor and a seed drill, goes a little faster. And actually Alan took these pictures on Monday, and it's in full bloom right now. So if you go down to Bateman Road here in the next, probably a couple of weeks, you'll see a field of gold. You've got some other species, bee balm here, and Rudbeckia, and anyway, it's looking really nice. This field will be managed as open land in perpetuity because they're of the native quail population. And so this field will probably be burned on a 2 to 4 year cycle, depending on weather conditions. The next area that we are trying to improve is the marshland area. And that's primarily because Marsh Day Flower, Merdania Keesack. Please, no one on this call ever buy this plant. I know it's for sale. Please do not buy this plant. It will completely take over a wetland system and just about eliminate any and every wetland plant that grows there. So zooming in with the flying over to it on the drone. Thank you, Nick, for flying it with a drone. You can get a closer look. Anytime you're looking at a natural system and it even resembles a lawn, that's not a good thing. Something's wrong. So this is a lot of that Marsh Day Flower. It grows really, really dense. And the reason, so the grant will cover a contractor to go out there and remove as much of it as possible, primarily around deeper sloughs like this, because a rare plant, the multiflora mud plantain, grows there, but is being choked out by that Marsh Day Flower. So this is a nice dainty plant, but it's anyway, it's a state rare plant that needs protection. And if nothing is done on this site, this plant will no longer exist on the site. So that's why we're focusing on the marshland. And then the final area and largest area here recently that we've done is the pine plantation. So when we protected this property back in 2017, 2018, working with the state to include it in the state natural area, pine plantation really isn't something you want in the state natural area. You want something more natural, something that like these hardwoods adjacent, because hardwood trees are actually better at bringing water down into the water table. It's also better at holding a site for erosion. And you can see the pine plantation just absolutely straight rows all the way through. And if you've ever driven by one and thought, a pine plantation is an extended time frame row crop. A forester is going out there planting those with an end time for harvest. So anytime you see that, it's definitely a man-made or man-altered field. It's just on a longer time horizon. So we actually worked with a logger to harvest the pine trees on the site. Of the 9.5 acres, I think only about 7.5 held pine, but he said it was actually rather productive. All that to say is none of it was very large. So that's me putting my boot up there for reference. Everything was, most of it was pulpwood. And if you don't know what pulpwood is, you might hear pulpwood, saw timber, all that. Pulpwood produces paper products such as cardboard and just note paper, but the pulp itself can and is used in baby diapers. So I'm certainly using some right now for my baby, not for me. And also used in OSB, which is oriented strand board, a stronger version of plywood. So it's used in construction. We wanted to make sure that there was an end use to the wood and that it wasn't just cut for no reason. Well, it's cut for restoration, but it's anytime you have an end product, you're securing the carbon that's grown in these rings into that product. So it'll make you think differently the next time you pick up a piece of wood, or when you look at pick up a bundle of papers, you're holding carbon that's been sequestered and is not going into the atmosphere. So a lot of the site looks like this, which is actually the way it's supposed to be. Best management practice is to spread the small limbs across the site so that there's no major erosion issues. And you want to do that really by the end of the summer. A lot of this will degrade, but you can already see, this is just mere days after it was done, there's already trees coming up. This stand wanted to be a hardwood forest, so we're making it a hardwood forest. And the other note is the logger was very thrifty, and he sourced a local mill that's making treated 6x6 posts. And so some of the larger trees that could handle it, I think it was all of 2 truckloads, but he was able to take it to a mill for 6x6 treated posts like you'd use in your landscape and buy from Lowe's. And so anything like that actually stores that sequesters that carbon for longer. I already talked about the best management practice to spread it out. And from this, we will clean up part of the site with the limbs once there's sufficient erosion control on the ground. And we're going to have another volunteer event here this fall, November or December, depending on what Mother Nature gives us as far as weather. And so we're converting that pine plantation, which it was pretty much just loblolly pine, which is the most planted tree in the Southeast, to these different species of oaks and hickories. So we're trying to jumpstart the upland and bottomland areas into a productive oak hickory forest that yields more wildlife habitat for birds and other species. And I'll just kind of end with this. So here's original baseline, pine plantation, crop field. And then we've converted the pine plantation to a mixture of upland hardwoods, bottomland hardwoods, upland, and then native warm season grasses. So all the flowers that we'll be able to see, which increases pollinators and birds. So this is our enhanced area, and plus the enhancements we do down in the marsh. So this is why we got the grant, and we're still working hard to see it through. And that's all I have. And I think Alan, you were going to go next.
Okay, thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Wolf River Conservancy, with all the work you're doing. I'm always impressed by what you have accomplished. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let's see. Share, whoops. Now, how do I don't see where I can. Let me see here. Well, can you see that screen? I don't know how to make it bigger. Everybody see that screen? All right, I'm Alan Trentley with Division of Natural Areas, and I work in the, oh, here we got some help.
Click on slideshow.
Slideshow. There we go. From beginning. Yay. All right. All right, let's begin. I'm Alan Trentley with Division of Natural Areas, and I live in Jackson, Tennessee. I started this job in 2008, and I manage 17 natural areas in the West Tennessee area. Most of you here are probably from the Shelby County, maybe Fayette County. We got 4 natural areas in Shelby County. That's Meeman, Shelby, Forest State Park. A portion of that is a natural area. Overton Park has the old Forest State Natural. Shelby Farms Park has Lucius Birch. And in Germantown, we have Riverwood State Natural Area. And we actually have 2 natural areas in Fayette County. William B. Clark State Natural Area over in Rossville. And then, of course, Ghost River State Natural Area. As a manager of these natural areas, I do quite a lot of different things. One is infrastructure management, and I think Ryan mentioned that I maintain and repair the boardwalk over at Mineral Slough at Ghost River. And we just had a Boy Scout finish a repair job over there, and because of that project, he's gonna get Eagle Scout. So lots of projects going on. Just a little bit of a summary of Ghost River. It was designated in 1997. And when I started, I started in 2008. We had only 2,220 acres. So we've added about 100 acres thanks to the work of Wolf River Conservancy. And that 100 acres is the cornerstone property. One of the other jobs I do, or duties I do on the job, is to inventory plants and animals and ecological systems on my natural areas. And right now we're up to 441 plants at Ghost River. And with a little bit more work, I think we can get that to over 500 plants, especially since we have the cornerstone property, which has different communities than what is on the original Ghost River. And again, Ryan went through a few slides on what communities are on Ghost River: swamps, marshes, bottomland, hardwoods, but we didn't really have any open fields or grasslands. And we only had a little bit of uplands in the original Ghost River. So Cornerstone adds a lot to the natural areas. I do these inventories, figure out, what plants we have, what animals we have, for a number of reasons. One reason is to inform the management of the area. For instance, since 2008, I found 6 state-listed plants at Ghost River State Natural Area, and these plants will have to be managed. And there is one of those plants that is found at Cornerstone, and that was the mud plantain that Ryan mentioned. And we're up to 398 animals, and surely if we get the experts in there that know their invertebrates, we can easily get over 1,000 animals. There's a lot of animals that I can't identify. We just got to bring in some experts. But the Cornerstone project is mostly focused on birds, and currently we have 168 species of birds have been documented at Ghost River. That's a lot of birds. In fact, in 17 of my natural areas, that's in the top 3. Reelfoot Lake probably has the most birds, and then Meeman Shelby Forest State Park, and then Ghost River. And that includes migrating birds. There's quite a lot of birds that migrate through along the Wolf River and the Mississippi River. We have some winter visitors, and then we have quite a lot of breeding birds that stay and nest in Ghost River. Now, some of the state listed plants are this plant. Again, you saw a picture of this already. This is the mud plantain. I found this about 10 years ago at Mineral Slough, where we have the trail and boardwalk. There was a small population along the road there. That would be Beasley Road. And that population had a lot of impacts because it's along the road. We had the possibility of people driving and actually running over plants, and I have actually saw some tire tracks in the population. And just just being along the road, there's the possibility of pollutants from cars and so on. And then maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I found a huge population of mud plantain, over 100 plants or so, just east of Bateman Road, what is now the cornerstone population, or cornerstone tract of Ghost River State Natural Area. And this little plant here, this is one of the biggest impact on the mud plantain in both sites, Mineral Slough and the Bateman Road, the Cornerstone Tract populations. When I first started this job, this plant here, this exotic invasive, which is Marsh Day Flower, was not at Ghost River. I can't say that 100%, but I can say it maybe 98%, because I looked in all these areas. I never saw this plant until about 6 or 7 years ago. And when I did find it, I knew it wasn't west of the Bateman Bridge. I didn't see it there. I know I didn't see it there. But a year or two later, there it was. And a little bit further west, we have the William B. Clark State Natural Area. This plant, Marsh Day Flower, was not there. But 2 or 3 years ago, I found it. So this stuff is spreading all the way down the Wolf River. And that Marsh Day Flower, I think it was just last year, the Tennessee Rare Plant Committee got together and talked about the mud plantain. It used to be listed as special concern, but we decided that it is so rare in the state, and every known population that we know, which is in Shelby and Fayette County. Those are the only 2 counties we know the mud plantain to be in. But every population that we know of is impacted by something. It could be habitat disturbance, or in the case of the plants at Ghost River, this single plant. And unfortunately, there is a lot of this Marsh Day Flower. It is a really bad exotic. I picked up a handful, just grabbed a bunch of stems and counted 75 stems in my hand. So there's acres of it. There's a lot of it. Our hope is to control at least the Marsh Day Flower around the mud plantain, because right now I expect that mud plantain is going to be extirpated from Ghost River, at least the Bateman, the Cornerstone Tract, in, I don't know, 5-10 years without control. So through our management, we're hoping that the mud plantain is going to survive and stick around. And then just another example of a rare plant. This one I found just at Mineral Slough, where the boardwalk again is, just behind the boardwalk, or just behind the parking lot. This one is willow leaf aster, and I was very surprised to find it in that location, because this is a plant of prairies and open grasslands. I found it occurring right at the edge of the forest and the managed field in the Wolf River Wildlife Management Area. And it's not doing too well over there. So one of my proposals is to take some of this plant, either by seed or dig it up, and to transplant it, introduce it into the Cornerstone tract. All right, so we talked about some birds, and there's quite a few state listed birds at Ghost River, such as the birds you see there, and bald eagles. They may nest just east of Bateman Road. We've seen them there. There are some nests there that belong to great blue herons, and we've actually seen bald eagles in the great blue heron nest. I think in the past they have nested there, and I'm not sure if the bald eagles nested there this year. but that would be close to or on the Cornerstone Tract. Swainson's warbler are probably down in the Cornerstone Tract in the swampy, marshy areas. And then the rest of those birds are wetland birds that may or may not be on the Cornerstone Tract, but I know they have been seen in the natural area, in the Ghost River State Natural Area. And there's an example of a bald eagle. That picture was actually taken in Alaska, where I was just last week. Okay, some of the values of the Cornerstone property or the Cornerstone Tract. About 20 years ago, the Audubon Society started this important bird area program. What they were doing is accepting nominations of properties, land that was important for birds. And somebody nominated the areas around the Mississippi River, and that became an important bird area because it's an important area for migrating birds. And then I believe the same person nominated the Ghost River area as an important bird area. And it was accepted and designated an important bird area by the Audubon Society because of all the rare nesting birds that occur there. And plus it is a good area for, well, you get a lot of migrating birds that come through that area. So the Cornerstone Tract is part of Ghost River, so I would say that it is part of that important bird area. Number two, it does, as I mentioned before, that it contains that endangered bouquet mud plantain. The Cornerstone Tract is a potential introduction site for the willow leaf aster, which I mentioned, but also this federally endangered world sunflower. The world sunflower occurs in very, very few locations in West Tennessee, and that's the only place it occurs in Tennessee. The Division of Natural Areas have been monitoring this federally endangered plant for maybe 10 or 12 years, and we have actually lost a few populations. Right now, I think we only have one population, and that's it for the whole state of Tennessee. I have a meeting on the world sunflower tomorrow, and I'm going to bring up introducing world sunflower into the fields at the Cornerstone Tract. And there's been talk about doing that in the past. So because we have this Cornerstone Tract and we have the right type of habitat, an open field that has some wet soils, at least near the bottomland forest, it's great habitat for world sunflower. So we may be able to protect world sunflower, this really endangered plant, by having an introduced site on the tract. And once we have it there, it is going to be protected, and we're going to be able to manage it. All the other sites in Tennessee, which really only one, are on private land and they are not protected. So this is big if we decide that this will be a good introduction site for this federally endangered species. And obviously it protects, the Cornerstone protects a portion of the Wolf River watershed. And lastly, when I went to the upland portion of Cornerstone along King Road, I was walking through there looking at what plants are in there as a forested area. But I came to this small opening and I was amazed at some of the plants I saw there. There was a lot of sunflower, there was some prickly pear and quite a few other things. So I'm calling this an upland herbaceous opening. This is new to Ghost River. We have a few upland areas, but there was no openings on the original Ghost River State Natural Area. Since adding Cornerstone, we now have this open herbaceous, this upland herbaceous opening. And some of the plants, I mentioned prickly pear. When I found prickly pear on this area, it was the first prickly pear I found at Ghost River. So this added to the species richness of the area. The sunflower that I found there I found that in a few small locations in Ghost River, but this is a new location for it. So this increases the biodiversity of the state natural area. So the small open area, we found some new plants that we didn't have before on our plant list, and plus a whole bunch of other plants that are very uncommon in the original Ghost River acreage. The community itself is pretty uncommon for the region. I could think of a few locations where we have something similar, but you know, throughout the Ghost River and plus the wildlife management area, this is the only area that I think we have this kind of community. Right now, the community has a lot of trees, and our hope in the management is to thin some of these trees out and possibly move some of these plants either by seed or dig a few of them up, depending on how many there are in that area already. But move these into the open area where the loblolly pines were cut. So we cut those loblolly pines and we created a good sunny open area where we could potentially increase this uncommon community in the natural area. So there's a lot of opportunities because of Cornerstone. And I was at the site Monday, and the field next to Bateman Road was just amazing. It was filled with the planted herbaceous, the wildflowers TWA planted, I think it was 2 years ago. Lots of Coreopsis in there, some black-eyed Susan, some Monarda, and so many other things. And it's, I mean, right now we're very successful at the management of that field, and hopefully in time it's going to get better. Here's the prickly pear. This picture was taken a little bit east of the Cornerstone property, outside of the Ghost River. On Cornerstone, there's so many trees that it shades it that our prickly pear on Cornerstone doesn't flower. So we hope to open it up so we can have it flower in there. A few years ago, prickly pear was one species in Tennessee. But some taxonomists were looking at the prickly pear and decided, hey, there are two species here. Prickly pear from this area does look different from the prickly pear over here. So they split it into two species. Because of that, we now have two species in Tennessee, and there's one that was split that is very rare. It only known from 2 counties, and one of those counties is Fayette County. And because this is so rare, sometime in the future, the Tennessee rare plant community could consider it a state listed species. So we hope that the one on Cornerstone might be that rare species, because there is a known population of the rare prickly pear just a few miles north of Ghost River. And then this is an example of the sunflower. It's not the sunflower on Cornerstone. This is the world sunflower. This is the federally endangered species that could potentially be introduced into the Cornerstone tract. And this is pretty much all I have. This last slide is just showing us on the Wolf River in the Ghost River section of the natural area. Doing some kayaking, recreating. I do a lot of events at Ghost River, and because of Cornerstone, I may add some different kinds of events to my schedule, which would include maybe just walking through the field and seeing what kind of butterflies and dragonflies and so on that we can find there. So a great addition to the natural area.
Okay, thank you so much, Alan. If you can go up to the top of your screen where it says stop share, then I can do the.
Did it.
couple of slides, thanks so much.
I did it without any help.
You did great. Okay, let's see here. I think this is it. Let's see if I can get this going. Yeah, there we go. I just wanted to mention eBird to everyone. So, and mainly because the Cornell lab wants us to encourage people who aren't already using this to do it. This is, or eBird.org is both a website and an app that you can download on your smartphone. And it is among the world's largest biodiversity-related science projects. It's a great way to not only organize your own bird sightings, keep track of both your photos, your recordings of bird songs, your bird lists, but while you're doing all that and kind of enjoying birds, whether they're just looking out your window or going out to the Cornerstone property and looking at birds or anywhere else, you are contributing to an international database and making important scientific contributions with every bird that you log out there. As you can see up there at the top, more than 100 million bird sightings are contributed annually through eBird, and that the participation growth rate is about 20% year over year. So it's really a very powerful tool, and I'd love to encourage you to use it. That's what the app looks like when you first download it. Just you punch the start button, and pretty easy to set up. And if you don't know your birds, that's okay. You probably know what a cardinal looks like, and you can just start there. There are lots of tools on the internet which make it very easy to get to know your birds. I want to mention that I set up a hotspot in eBird. All that means is that if you are birding near that area, then those sightings will automatically go to the hotspot so that we can track and Cornell can track what birds have been seen in the Cornerstone area. So it's a really great tool for us to track. So along with all these great plants that Alan was talking about, hopefully even on 23 small acres, we can attract a lot of birds, and maybe we'll get a few new ones. We've seen 80 species so far documented in eBird. So hopefully we'll get a few more, including some of those birds that depend on grassland areas, even though there isn't a lot of grassland and wildflower open area, but it certainly can't hurt. And then I will stop my slides by saying that we've got a great fundraiser coming up that you'd love to participate in. I'm sure the Discover the Greenway, running from June 18th through June 25th, gives you a chance to win some great prizes. And I want to thank everyone for their support and for attending tonight. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and now start asking your questions, which you put into the Q&A box. We've got one from our friend Bill Bullock. How will the contractor go about removing the invasive plants in the marshland area, and how is this going to be managed to limit their repopulation in that area? Very good question.
I'll give it a go here. So the contractor is going to use a combination of mechanical, aka hand pulling, and herbicide. There's a very specific type of herbicide. Bill, you probably want to know what specifically. I can give you that information from the contractor. And then as far as limiting it, we've got some ideas, and we'll probably try a hodgepodge of ideas. There's not that much research on how to effectively get rid of it and keep it gone. So we're going to try a combination of things. Alan, I don't know if you want to speak any more to that.
This was controlling the Marsh Day Flower. Is that what? Yeah. Just on Monday, I was talking with somebody, a professor over at University of Memphis that works with fungi. And he's currently looking at kudzu and the fungi on kudzu and trying to come up with a biocontrol for kudzu. And I told him about this plant, the Marsh Day Flower, and he's very interested in looking at it and researching it. And he's actually starting the process starting this week. He emailed me today and asked me a couple questions. He's going to collect, we're going to go down there and collect some plants, and he's going to write a research proposal. And the hope is that we will have a biological control for Marsh Day Flower in the near future. It may be 5-10 years from now, but I don't know, maybe sooner than that. So that's something possibly to look forward to. But right now, we just have chemical means to control it. So.
How much good would it do, Alan, just hand pulling? I mean, just to around the, I know it'll come right back, but around the mud plantain.
Mud plantain. I would say it's very, very labor intensive. We're going to be pulling hundreds and hundreds of stems, and you're not going to get all the stem. You just can't. So I wouldn't. Hand pulling probably not a great idea.
Well, I mean, will it make the problem worse? I'm thinking a group of paddlers might be able to get in there and yank a whole bunch.
Yank a whole bunch, yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Because if we herbicide it, we can kill the mud plantain. Let's see. Yeah. So I think we're going to have to pull. And like I said, it's labor intensive, and we can't get it all, but we can try. There was one area, Otney Hollow State Natural Area, I found a huge bunch of Marsh Day Flower. Yeah, I couldn't believe it was there. And it was very worrisome because we have a federally endangered plant there. And me and the person I was with, we pulled every single one of it, hundreds of stems, put it in a big bag, and drug it a mile out of there. Because you can't leave it on the ground because it'll just sprout from the stems. The next year I came back, I found one stem. I was like, oh, wow, it worked. So who knows, maybe we can pull it and control it at least for a while.
Great. Yeah, worth a try anyway. Okay, here's another interesting question. Is Quercus margaretia an option for planting in the former pine plantation? Is that appropriate habitat?
Yeah, I mean, I can take that. So I actually just recently looked at the soils underneath, and some of the same soil types so Quercus margaretae is a sand post oak, which only occurs in Fayette County. It's the same soil type that it grows on elsewhere. So it is a possibility. However, getting seedlings and getting it transported is the hard part. It is not a plant that's available in the trade. Just from what I've collected probably 100 acorns, and I've gotten all of 2 to come back. So it's a very difficult plant to deal with. So if we're able, yes, we'll try it, is how I'll answer that.
Okay. Here's a good question. When is the tree planting activity scheduled, and how do I register? And I'm going to add to that question. Are we planning to plant trees in the cleared pine plantation area, or are we letting the forest naturally regenerate?
Yeah, we will be planting trees in that area. Some of it will be so forested already from just coming in that we won't even be able to. But what we will plant were those native species we highlighted. We don't have a date just yet, but I would circle the month in November. I'm thinking November is probably the month.
Yeah. And then I made up a question, which I thought was a good one. Some birds depend or need pine trees. So like the pine warbler, for example. And so will there still be pine trees at Cornerstone? Or what are the birds going to do without them?
Yeah, so in between the upland and bottomland fields was a mixed hardwood pine forest. So there's still pine on site, just in a more natural state than a plantation.
Okay. And I think, let me make sure we don't have questions in the chat box. No, just lots of thanks. from Keith. So I think that's it. Anyone out there, if you have any questions, your time to enter them is right now. If not, thank you so much for attending. Oh, can we get a copy of the map? Henry would like to know.
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay, maybe we can include that with the email that goes out to registrants.
Yeah.
Yes, so yes is the answer to that question. Thanks everybody for coming or virtually coming to our presentation tonight. Really appreciate it. And thanks, Alan, for spending your time with us. Okay, y'all have a wonderful evening. Bye.